Archie Duncan, elderly landlord to Carol Wilson, has speculated heavily on a consignment of bananas being shipped into Britain. He has paid £7,000 for them, but expects them to fetch 12 at market value. However, to raise the money, he has had to borrow £5,000 from a Mr. Barker at the Finance Loan Corporation. The shipment is 24 hours from docking, and the loan is now overdue. He has yet to find a buyer, and he has only 2 days after the ship docks before the bananas are past their best.
A Change of Bait, written by Lewis Davidson, produced by Leonard White and directed by Don Lever.
Archie Duncan visits Lemuel Potts, a businessman who has expressed an interest in acting as a middleman. Potts already has a buyer, Fletcher and Kalps, a firm up north, and Archie signs a contract authorising Potts to act as agent. Archie is to have the fruit delivered to the buyer. Once Archie has left the office, Potts telephones Peter Sampson, his contact at the docks. He tells Sampson that the cargo of the SS Yander Krupp must stay on board and rot. Later that day, John Steed makes an anonymous telephone call to Archie and tells him that his cargo will not be unloaded due to a strike at the docks. Archie goes into shock and collapses. In his office, Potts instructs his right-hand man, Herb, to arrange the dock strike. Potts then telephones Fletcher of Fletcher and Kalps and asks him to send a contract confirming purchase of the fruit. He is not to worry, it will never arrive. They agree their usual terms. Meanwhile, Keel has arrived at Archie's house to tend to him. He has had a mild stroke, and Keel orders him to rest up. Archie promises to do this, but after the doctor leaves, he tidies himself at the mirror and dresses to go out. Back at the surgery, Steed exchanges notes with Keel and explains about the dock strike and Archie Duncan's predicament. Keel wonders if Archie is insured. No, reveals Steed, but the insurance company is, for the full market value. You see, the finance company have title to the bananas until Duncan pays them. Barker's Loan Corporation is ever so slightly crooked, but we can't put our finger on Barker until we establish a connection with Potts, the little strike rigger. Archie Duncan has arrived at Barker's office at the Finance Loan Corporation and explains that the docks are strike-bound and he cannot have his cargo delivered. Barker sympathises and reassures him that his loan is fully insured. Archie is more concerned that his £2,000 capital outlay is not covered. At the surgery, Steed postulates his theory about the scam. This is quite a racket. A business is in trouble. Barker lends it money and gets the title to the business as collateral. Say it doesn't pick up. The original owner is frantic with worry, and Barker comes up with a solution. Mr. Potts. A strike. Larceny. Even a fire. The insurance pays off to the title holder, which in every case is Barker, Keel realises. What about the original owner's debt? Barker's magnanimous. He forgets it. Why shouldn't he? He's made a thumping good profit on the insurance, says Steed. So Duncan looks like losing his money. Is that right? Asked Keel. Yes, unless we can have the strike called off, says Steed. Meanwhile, Barker is meeting another client, Andre, an antiques dealer who has borrowed heavily to invest in Victoriana, only to see demand drop off alarmingly. His payment to Barker is overdue by 10 days. Barker suggests an alternative solution and tells Andre to expect a call from a man who will solve his problems. In the evening, Keel and Steed arrive at the docks. Keel waits outside while Steed visits Sampson in his office. Steed has investigated Sampson and has learned that the staunch union man has 2 houses in Cheltenham and his boys are at public school. He presses him to end the strike, using this information and his knowledge of Potts against him. Samson accuses Steed of blackmailing him, but Steed holds all the cards. Britain needs her bananas, brother. Unload them, Steed demands. Samson reluctantly agrees to call off the strike, unload the cargo, and inform Potts of the development. Steed returns and reveals to Keel that he is expecting a telephone call at the nearby call box, which he has stuck an out-of-order sign on to dissuade others. Steed had earlier visited Potts's office and made the acquaintance of the switchboard operator Ivy, with whom he had left the call box number. Meanwhile, Potts has learned of the broken strike and has Ivy put through a call to Fletcher and Kelps. She connects him to the call box, and Potts asked for Fletcher. Steed explains that he is not available. Potts leaves a message saying that the banana shipment is too ripe and that he should cancel his order by 7 a.m, when the cargo will be unloaded. Pleased with his deception, Steed turns to Keel and tells him that Archie must now deliver the shipment to Fletcher and Kelps. The following morning, Potts briefs Herb about the antiques job. He receives a furious telephone call from Fletcher, who has received 75,000 stalks of bananas that he had been assured were not leaving the docks. Potts protests that he had left a message. Fletcher checks with his switchboard and tells Potts they received no calls from London the previous night. He angrily refuses to pay. Potts informs Barker of the problem. He is now £12,000 down on the deal. Barker suggests that the money he will make from Andre, the antiques dealer, will more than compensate him. Potts suspects that his phone system has been tampered with. Ivy claims that she connected him to the number she always calls for Fletcher and Kelps. Potts is not convinced. Later, Keel pays a call on Archie Duncan and reprimands him for disobeying his order to rest. Archie apologises and says that after he has paid in the cheque from Potts, he will retire and rest as much as the doctor wants. Andre arrives at Potts's office. He is told a fire will be set at the antique shop and is asked to supply a detailed floor plan. Andre is wary of Potts's men being seen on the premises surveying the area. "They're arsonists, not surveyors, Mr. Andre," Potts exclaims. "They're going to burn you out. If basic English makes you nervous, you could call them pyrotechnic engineers." The operation will be carried out at 3 a.m. on Tuesday, 5 days hence. Meanwhile, Steed is meeting Keel in the doctor's surgery. Keel tells him that Archie is expecting his cheque and will pay it into the bank in the morning. Steed has heard of Potts and Barker's latest scam involving Andre and suggests that the pair of them visit the antique shop and scout around. That afternoon the pair drop by the shop. Initially, Keel talks to Andre on the pretext of wanting to purchase a wedding gift, but Andre does not have what he is looking for. Steed hovers in the background, and eventually Andre attends to him when he leaves Keel to browse. Steed is at his most mischievous. "Do you happen to have an Edwardian moustache cup?" "As a matter of fact, I do," replies Andre. "I'll grow a moustache." "Good afternoon," says Steed, doffing his bowler on the way out. Potts and Herb decide to bring forward the antique shop fire to early the next morning. This way they will get paid out, and he will have time to stop the cheque he will shortly have to write for Duncan, and then tomorrow they will pack up and leave. Shortly afterwards, Archie Duncan arrives and Potts writes him a cheque for £11,400 and 9 shillings, the sale price of the fruit minus commission, and a reduction due to bruising in transit. Archie is relieved and grateful. Later, Keel telephones Steed about Archie's cheque. Steed fears it isn't worth a penny and suspects Potts and his money will be untraceable by morning. If they are to implicate Barker and pick up Potts and his associates, their only hope is that the antique shop fire will still be set. Steed asks Keel to meet him there. Late at night they have gained entry to the shop. Steed is armed with an infrared stills camera to capture evidence. The crime fighters find a conveniently placed antique wardrobe, large enough to conceal the both of them. They step inside it. Steed closes the wardrobe door until only a thin crack is left, through which the antique shop can be seen. He raises the camera and plays with the sighting. "We're spending the night in this?" asks Keel. "Romantic, isn't it?" Steed replies breezily. Some time later the shop bell rings. Herb and Charlie enter, carrying petrol cans and a fuse device, and set about their work. Steed curses under his breath. Potts is not with them. Steed takes photographs from the wardrobe while the pair liberally douse the shop with petrol. Herb carefully floats a fuse device on some petrol he has poured into an antique bowl and hears an unexpected click from behind him. In a blur of action he lunges at the wardrobe, pushes the doors shut and twists the key he finds in the lock. Charlie pushes a table in front to ensure whoever is inside cannot escape. Keel and Steed are trapped. Herb lights a 1-hour fuse. It is 2:15 a.m. Keel and Steed hammer on the wardrobe, but unfortunately the Victorians built their furniture far too well. Half an hour later, Herb and Charlie meet Potts at his office. Herb demands half the proceeds instead of their original 40% cut. Things have changed. They have been photographed and have had to leave the unknown photographer to die in the fire at Andre's. Potts demands that Herb goes back to release the man. Herb refuses. Meanwhile, at the shop, Steed and Keel are still trapped. In less than 15 minutes, they will be victims of an inferno. Suddenly they hear Andre enter the shop. He is picking up a few precious items. Steed and Keel shout to be released. Andre hears the commotion and sets them free. Steed makes a dash for the bowl containing the fuse device. He gingerly removes it and carries it out to the safety of the street. Andre telephones Potts and complains that the device hasn't worked. There is no fire. Potts tells Andre to go home and instructs Herb and Charlie to go back and check. This time he will accompany them to ensure there are no further mistakes. The three men arrive at the antique shop. Potts goes to the wardrobe and unlocks the door. He is shocked when Andre falls out, bound and gagged. Steed calls to Keel to overpower the villains, and Steed leaves Keel to stand guard until the authorities arrive. Steed takes Potts with him. He needs him to ensnare Barker. At 7 in the morning, Steed sits lazily in Potts's office. Potts nervously watches as Steed thumbs through his files. Steed makes Potts a proposition. "You are in a pickle, aren't you, Potts? And all Barker's doing. Seems unfair, don't you think? Him getting away scot-free, and you going to prison." Potts looks at the floor and refuses to talk. "Your loyalty's touching, but misplaced." Steed continues. "Is Barker taking the £12,000 loss on Duncan's bananas, or are you? I'd like to help you. Some friends of mine have a tap on his phone, and if you were to give him a call, well, I could set the insurance boys on him." Potts is suspicious. Steed tells Potts that Archie Duncan will be paying the cheque-in shortly, and threatens to turn him in. He can join Herb and Charlie in prison. He picks up the phone and starts dialing, and then replaces the receiver. Potts cracks and grabs the phone. He dials Barker and demands money. Barker implicates himself in the conversation, and Steed is delighted. He suggests that Potts may now call the bank and cancel the cheque before Duncan has it processed. When the call is finished, Steed reveals to Potts that this call has also been recorded for evidence, and that Archie has already cashed his cheque. Steed has tricked Lemuel Potts, whose features are now etched with the pain of defeat.